Alright, so in this video, we're going to make some new skid shoes for this ditch mower. One of the things I noticed when I used it a couple weeks ago for the first time was that the skid shoes, even all the way down, weren't really high enough or long enough, and they're only about an inch wide, so they tend to catch the dirt. So to take care of that, I have decided I'm going to make some new skid shoes. So let's throw this thing on there, rip the old ones off, make all the measurements, cut them on plasma, weld them, paint them, put them back on. I'm gonna So basically going to be replacing these skid shoes with some new ones, custom made. Okay, so the first thing I did once I took off the skid shoes was I took a couple measurements, and the old ones were basically about 2 3/4 inches tall. Had 3 holes in the side of it, which you will see in the comparison of the two shoes that I made, or the one that came with it and the one I made. And I realized that I had it on basically the highest setting, and it still was right around 3 inches, maybe 3 1/4. But every once in a while, because the shoes are so narrow, it would dig in and cut it lower. So knowing that I normally cut my lawn at about 3 1/2 inches, because it is pretty rough, I decided I want these to be taller. So I actually ended up only cutting 2 new holes. I took it from 2 3/4 to basically 3 1/2 inches high. And this plating that I'm actually using is I think it's sitting at 32nd or so thicker than what was currently on there. It is thick. The new stuff is thicker. I guess don't quote me on what it was exactly here. But basically, I knew I didn't need the lower settings because I was never going to cut that low. So basically what I did was I cut 2 new ones, giving me a higher setting. That should put it basically right around the skid shoes themselves being about 3 inches high. Where the old ones, believe it or not, right about here is where the top hole was on the old one. So that kind of gives you an idea of you're getting basically another 3/4 of an inch height on it. And So I basically took a digital, or actually it wasn't even digital, but I took a caliper and basically measured out the distance for the hole size, and I basically made it was it 200ths bigger. It was actually .43. I made it .45 to give a little extra space. And I basically, what I did was I measured the diameter for the bolt holes, and I also took a measurement from the center of the existing one, from this bolt hole to this one, and then I took a measurement from the back to the center. And that's basically how I was able to know how to space this on the new one. The other thing I also did was, from where it actually slants up on the other one, I took a measurement from that to the back, and then I took a measurement basically from end to end, and then I took basically a measurement of how high it was from basically this level to this, and that's how I basically was able to figure out what angle I needed this to be. So I basically, by using Autodesk Fusion, I basically sketched out the main part, put in the holes, put in all my I put all my constraints in, which you basically can see right here, which are all the different dimensions between the holes, between that and the end, how far they're spaced apart, how far they are from the top, and basically laid them all out and took it over and basically went to the manufacturer, specified all the lines and stuff as to cut, which ones to do, built a profile, and sent it to the plasma cutter, which you'll see that kind of cutting a couple of the parts. I didn't get all of them basically on video, because ironically this video is an afterthought. I was mostly through cutting all the parts when it dawned on me that I had forgotten to pull the camera out and record it. Actually, my cousin was the one that reminded me, so that's why a lot of these parts you don't see them cut, but you do get to at least see the plasma cutter operate. Okay, so basically when I actually made the skid shoes themselves, I had basically had the short pads, which is part that angle up, that's what these are right here, and then the long ones on one original drawing. And then when we were cutting it, we basically had got the two long ones done, and we had basically a tip up, and it kind of messed up the rest of the cut. And in my haste, I thought I had saved the whole thing and then did a new version of it, but apparently I had just changed the original one. So that's basically why you don't see the actual two bottom, the long skid shoes, which basically were actually cut over here. And those are basically going to be, 3 inches long to go across the bottom. This is the part that angles up. But anyhow, I took the measurements, once again, like I said, from the old one, knowing that I wanted this to be 3 inches wide. I made these 3 inches wide. You actually will see these parts being cut out. And then once I basically had these done, I knew that now that they're taller, that they're going to need some additional strength. So I had to come up with some triangles. And that's this next one here. Alright, so knowing that basically the size triangles that I needed to basically use as wedges, which you will see on the skid shoes, need that basically to stiffen it up and give it strength. So I basically had laid out 8 of these here, and you basically actually end up needing 12 of them. I ended up actually first trying to cut this with some 7/16 stock that I had, And the problem I had with that is when I got this plasma cutter, they only gave me a tip that went up to 30 amps, even though it's a 45 amp and it'll cut like 5/8 steel. But anything over a quarter, you need a larger tip, and they give you basically which is considered a 0.8. And I had a 1.0, which does really good at cutting the thicker stuff, but it does a wider cut. And believe it or not, these are pretty small parts. What I actually need is a 0.9 tip, which ironically I just got that the other day after I cut all these parts, because it basically took a while to get the part in. So there's tips. So I basically originally tried to cut this, which you'll see in the video, in some 5/16 stock. And I had basically of them, I want to say 3 good ones of the 8 where it was actually sized right and pretty much everything was proper. And the rest of them, because either didn't burn all the way through because the tip just didn't have enough amps. So if I turn the amps up, it'll actually warp the tip and then have no accuracy. So I ended up basically recutting it a second time with the thinner stock, and it actually worked out fine. It's very sturdy. I don't think it's going to bend or have any problems with it because it is thicker than what was originally there. And the other one had basically, as you'll see in the original, there's no wedges or triangles. And the reason I was able to get away with these supports was because I actually made it taller. And knowing that I made it taller, I had to basically take into account this height, which gets welded on the backside, and knowing that it'll never get in the way of anything when you're actually mounting it on there. So I basically, as you'll see in the coming up here in the next part of the video, and I can show these parts being cut, you'll basically see how I basically ended up cutting another set of them, and then they get welded in. You can kind of see I have like real short little welding clip just to kind of show you when it was being welded. You can kind of see where the triangles are in there and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and go on to the next part here. See how it kind of moves away from, see how it just fell in there?
Yeah.
That's why it does that.
Oh, is that it?
That's it, man. All right. There would be the new shoes. And as soon as it dries off outside, we'll give them a try. A big difference. Just comparing the old to the new. What a difference. So, we'll see how they work.